Game's called SpinTires Mudrunner, and it's a truck simulation game where you drive Soviet-era vehicles across the Russian wilderness. And it sounds pretty plain, but you've got.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
It's a very physics-heavy simulation game. Like it's sort of like Euro Truck Simulator meets Beam.ng. I don't know if you're familiar with that game. But we've got physics models for just about everything you can see in the game, from the vegetation up until we've got soft tire physics, like realistic suspension, even like the vegetation, like even the trees and the branches, they've all got their own physics model. The game's called SpinTires Mudrunner, and one of the main focuses on the game is, in fact, the mud. And as you see, when we drive across with our truck, you can see the mud splitting up and even getting caught in the ribs of the tires and things like that, which will eventually keep affecting the way you drive and things like that.
It must be so hard to code as a coder.
The team's it's a custom-built engine, actually. The team worked on it themselves. It's not running on Unreal or anything like that. It's their own house engine. And they built it from the ground up. I think it was a Kickstarter at first, and then...
Yeah, started as a Kickstarter. So the original game was actually called SpinTires? Yeah, SpinTires. So this is sort of the follow-up from that, with upgraded engine and a lot more in-depth stuff.
Whoa, I love it when Kickstarters actually accomplish like a real end game.
Yeah, that's the dream.
The main bulk of the game takes place in really big sandbox maps. So this is one of them here. There's actually a total of six maps, all with their own themes. This one's the bog, so you got a lot of swampy, a lot of shallow water and things like that. There's also another map called Demerge, and it's just a whole flooded section, and it's just water everywhere, and it's an absolute nightmare to traverse. But that's the
challenge.
Real it's the struggle is what what the players want to feel like. They want to try to achieve something, try to push the limits of their Soviet-era vehicles across these really harsh wilderness conditions.
You're going to be in environments where most games, they wouldn't even let you drive in them because it just seems impossible.
Yeah.
So I noticed that some of the trucks are locked. How does actually one open more trucks?
Okay, so there are two ways to unlock stuff. The first way is, of course, to just visit the trucks and go find them out in the world. Sometimes they're trapped in a river or something like that, and you have to use winches and cranes and things to pull them out. And you can also go to... Another way to unlock stuff is to visit the log stations. Like there's one up here, which is really, really far away. And you deliver the logs over to the lumber mill. And of course, logs, they move about, and they're really tough to traverse, especially if you're driving around a really tight, narrow, muddy path. It's really difficult to send it through. So it's up to players to think of their own route. They can go through off-road if they want, or they can try traveling the road as well. You can change what's on your truck. I'll just drive over to I'll drive over back to the garage. You can change the add-ons and the trailers and things like that to get a loadout that's a loadout. You get equipment selection that's useful for your current situation. So in this map, it seems like the log station's really, really far away. So you might need fuel. But there is a fuel station, so if I wanted to go around the long way but take a safe route, I might need to drop off at the fuel station, or I can just go off-road and carry a fuel cistern at the back of my truck here, and then just get the fuel from there.
That makes you heavier.
Yeah, things like that.
In the mud.
The entire game is the entire sandbox maps. They're all playable in 4-player co-op, which is really in case you wanted to do more complicated deliveries, or you wanted to reach mountains far away, it'd be better to travel as a group. One of the new additions to this, because this is the next iteration of SpinTires, one of the new additions to the game is the challenge mode, where we give you a specific vehicle in a specific part of the map, and then we just expect you to handle this specific objective. You can make it more difficult with a bunch of challenge. There are some challenges that make the journey more difficult. You can only play at nighttime. You can't use the winches. You should never let go of the accelerator. Things like that. in this particular challenge mode, we've got 3 trucks like lined up in a row here. This could also you can't play this specific scenario in co-op because the challenge modes are only single player. But for this situation, you can emulate it in co-op and it'll still be just as effective. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to attach a winch to the back truck behind me. Ideally, you do this with a friend, so you'd have 2 other friends with you. The idea is you bring the 2 trucks along like a longer journey, and then when you need to go off-road and reach a certain point, like say the top of a mountain, something like that, you can take the little Jeep and your third friend can like unload himself and then get to the objective if you want. The winch is traditionally, of course, designed to pull like this. It's a bit heavy, so it's struggling. But if you're by yourself, if you're playing by yourself and you winch yourself to an empty vehicle, you can switch it to drive mode, which just changes the winch button to accelerate. So it means you can do some of the basic, I think, cooperative moves. Like they're not specifically moves, but you know, play around with multiple trucks at once, even if you're just a single player. If we wanted to talk about some, sorry, what
are we going to cross the river with 3?
Yeah, we're going to try to cross the river with this very blunt-faced truck, which is probably a bad idea. So, but we're going to do it anyway. The water is not really animated; it's still physics simulated, and it's quite like we're pretty proud of our extremely realistic water.
He's taking damage.
Yeah, he is, but I think he'll be okay. The front of the truck is going to struggle at this point, so I'm going to get the truck at the back to try to accelerate a little bit more and push me across.
Everybody remain calm.
You'll notice as well that
hold on to your butts.
Clinch, clinch, clinch.
You'll notice as well, driving through the water actually cleans your tires of the mud that you might have accumulated. So this is a pretty extreme way to clean your vehicle, so I wouldn't advise going through this kind of water. But if you come across, say, a small stream and you've been having difficulties with it all clogging up your tires, then it can be a pretty good way of dealing with it.
Can the other vehicles get damaged if in fact they're staying too long in the water?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you kind of have to keep moving along. You can't just like idle there.
Yeah, and you definitely, if you ever find yourself idling, you should be definitely holding down on that accelerator, because if you get your engines flooded, you're not gonna have a nice time.
Yeah, you need to make sure the water line doesn't go above the exhaust, just like real life.
Okay, so you guys are making it as realistic as possible to like any vehicle.
I mean, even the fuel at the back of this truck is simulated, as you can see it, and just hopping over there. It's the amount of detail that the team worked on is pretty amazing. I'm gonna switch over to another challenge just to put things just to conclude. But we've got, as I said, we have Soviet-era vehicles, so it ranges from all sorts of kinds of Russian vehicles. The game has, for PC users, because the game's going to be out on Xbox One and PS4 as well, for PC users they get access to all the mod tools, so you can create and import your own vehicles, you can put your own maps in. The community's been working on American wilderness and American trucks like Ford Explorer and things like that. But with our game, it's just we work on the Russian vehicles, the old Russian vehicles, and definitely the old Russian environments and things like that. This is an example of one of our favorites.
I think it's so cool that the community can get involved in making this game look really cool.
Yeah, they've been a huge part of this game.
Is this an amphibious type vehicle?
It's not an amphibious vehicle, but it's definitely good at traversing the water and things like that. It's because there's so many wheels, and it's got differential lock on, which means that the wheels on each axle, they spin at the same rate. You kind of lose a lot of traction, but you got a lot of you lose a lot of control, but you gain a lot of traction with something like that.
It's like a tank.
Yeah, it's essentially like that.
That looks deep. Sink or swim.
Yeah.
Can we show what happens when it sinks?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Also, how many game modes are you guys wanting, or can we share today?
So right now, on release, which is on October this year, when we release the game, there'll be a tutorial mode, which wasn't in the original game because it was a really technical game. I mean, we have also a really elaborate gear shifting system, which I didn't really go into yet. But We've got a tutorial mode which covers every aspect of the game, including like working the cranes, using the winches properly and things like that, and driving the more like driving every type of vehicle. Then we've got the sandbox mode with the 6 maps, those large maps, completely playable in co-op. Then we have the challenge mode, which is it's the like set missions where we give you a vehicle, we give you a map, and then you have to try to do it as best you can, with like a bunch of bonus objectives like do it at nighttime or like complete the mission without the use of winches and things like that.
Right. Are we still driving?
Oh, I mean, I stopped because I needed to.
You thought you were done?
Concentrate. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm trying. So, yeah. Overall, I think the game's it's pretty niche, but the community is really, really strong, and we're really happy to say that like a lot of the fan like requests are being looked into. Namely, people with wheel controllers, they have a little bit of trouble with the camera because it's a bit of a unique camera system. Mm-hmm. As you can see, like it's got a slight pan before actually committing to a turn, and it's kind of difficult for wheel users. But we're looking into new camera angles, and we're working on like a new something's been asked is like a cockpit view or something like that, and we're looking into new ways to do that. Currently, we've got a work in progress hood view that's here. But we're still tinkering around with it.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for showing this game.